And now you mentioned Mesmer's student, who the Marquis Puysegur.
Yes.
Who carried on his work.
Yes. Now, this is a really important chapter for the history of psychotherapy and psychology generally in the West. That this man happened to come along. He was a Marquis. He was in the aristocracy, and he decided he wanted to take. I suppose you would call it a seminar that Mesmer was teaching in Paris. Yeah. To learn himself how to use Mesmer's technique. Mesmer charged a fee for the seminar, and you could go there and learn it and go off and practice. Yep. And so he did that. And he went back to his estate in Soissons, and he began using Mesmer's technique with the passes of the hands over the body to induce the flow of magnetic fluid. And the first person he encountered was one of the servants who lived there, a woman. She had a toothache. He used these passes. The toothache went away. So another woman who had a toothache heard about this and came over and got her treatment, and that toothache went away. Next, there was a young man named Victor on his estate who seemed to have, it looked like a flu from what we can tell in terms of the description of the illness. And they asked him if he could help Victor. So he applied these passes to Victor, and Puysegur was very observant. So he began seeing things about what was going on in the people who were being magnetized, as they called it, that Mesmer hadn't noticed. He saw changes in the way that he was personally, that is, Victor. His personality seemed different, and he did things that seemed surprising. For instance, at one point, Puysegur decided he would try to get him to work off the temperature that he had through sweating, and so he wanted to get him to dance, and he suggested that he was at a party and he should dance, and so he got up and began dancing and sweating and so forth. These are just techniques that came to Puysegur off the top of his head.
So he started working with suggestion.
Yep. So that was a suggestion. And then he discovered that he could think of different songs, and that this young man, Victor, would begin singing them without Puysegur saying anything to him about what the song was that he was thinking about.
As if there were a telepathic connection.
Exactly, that's right. And this didn't seem to surprise Puysegur that he could read his thoughts. That's the way he saw it, and he didn't seem to think that was terribly unusual. And he also did things that allowed Victor to speak about his own illness, and he described his illness. And later on, as he continued to work with Victor, it turned out that Victor was able to describe the illnesses of other people and prescribe effective remedies for them. So that he seemed to have what we would today call a kind of medical clairvoyant ability.
Like Edgar Cayce.
Yeah, something like that.
In the U.S. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So that this was there were a whole set of things that were noticed by Puysegur that Mesmer had no idea about. He didn't think that the person who was being healed had to go into some kind of convulsive reaction as Mesmer thought. He could have a quiet crisis, as Puysegur said, and the healing would take place naturally that way.
And I presume he didn't necessarily have that big tub filled with iron filings.
No, he didn't. Yeah. No, he believed in the fluid, the magnetic fluid, but he believed equally in the power of love. And he said that you have to love and will that the person get well through good feelings towards that person. That was part of it. Not that this meant that the magnetic fluid had no place, but he saw them as working together.
And if I recall, he seemed to feel that if the therapist or healer was a person who had no blocks to the magnetic fluid, then that would affect the person being healed and would help unblock them.
That's exactly right. The idea was to unblock their obstacles to the movement of magnetic fluid through the power of the movement of magnetic fluid through the body of the mesmerizer. And he believed, it was called mesmerizer later on, but he believed that if you were working as a healer and you weren't unblocked yourself, this could be very hard on you, drain you very badly. Whereas if the energy was moving freely through you, it didn't take that much out of you.